Some of you may be sitting here and saying, okay, well, that sounds good. I want to live the vision. What does that mean? Well, it's about becoming. And when we think of becoming, these are the things in my life. This is the work that God's truly doing. And often it can be hard to understand and to think about what is the work that God's trying to do in my life. Well, when you look at the New Testament and we hear Jesus talk about the work he wants to do in us, Galatians chapter 5, verse 22 is a great passage in a letter called Galatians. And it tells us when we allow the Holy Spirit to truly work in our life and we will let him be present with us and we will actually interact with God's presence, and we do this in a number of ways. We'll talk about that in a minute. Then there are outcomes. There is literal fruit that grows in our life because of it. And those are listed out here called the fruit of the Spirit. And you may say, well, that's not really practical. Really? Receiving and giving love? That seems to be the theme of every movie out there. Giving, receiving, or the rejection of. Joy? Really? I know a whole lot of people who are spending billions of dollars trying to find that. I know a whole lot of people who are spending billions of dollars who are trying to find peace. People wanting this idea of patience. It's like, oh, that's a fine idea, but man, what is that like? I don't even know what that's like. Showing kindness, and showing goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and then self-control. Self-control. Maybe those aren't the words that really hit it. You're thinking, no, there is something God wants in my life. It's absolutely clear. I don't know everything, but I do know this. Maybe these other words, being faithful, free, dependable, responsible. Maybe those words more hit it for you. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think every one of us could say, there's 2 or 3 things on this list right now. I don't know everything, but I do know those 2 or 3 are something God could do in my life, and I'm pretty sure he wants to. I'm clear about that. And maybe there would be something else. You say, well, it's not on there. We'll just write it in the box. But the idea here is to understand the becoming. I know where I've been sent, but where is God sending me? Well, he's preparing me by the becoming. What is it that he wants to talk to me about? What is it that he's challenging me with these days? Where could I let him work in my life as I sit with him in the chair on a daily basis? As I give God my time throughout the week, maybe it's not every day, maybe it's every other day. I don't know, but when you give God that devotion of your time and your energy and your thought life, the reading of his scriptures, a moment to pray for his help in becoming, whenever that happens, this could act as a way to help you talk specifically with him about the work he wants to do. And then we recognize that with every becoming, there is a risk. There is a risk. Because in order to become these things, there's a risk that's going to come with it. The risk is how we do it. The risk is time. So often we think about this, the risk is time, and it's a risk that many aren't willing to take. We don't want to risk the time to actually be here next week when we talk again about the Arrow Project. No, I'm not making fun, but we live in a day when churches across America are surveyed and people say, I am super committed. I actually come once a month. And some will say, well, that's not my practice. I come almost all the time. Great, that's wonderful for you. But we got to recognize that actually the majority of the 3,000 plus people that call our church home that attend here on a regular basis, that is not their practice. But what if it was? What would be the changes in our lives if we could actually make ourselves available to God's Holy Spirit and presence, just like we've already experienced here this morning? God was present with us today. There's no denying that. And he will be present again as we gather again next week. Why wouldn't we put ourselves in the path of God to see the miraculous take place in our mundane? And how about I would spend some time with God and give him 15 minutes, maybe every other day. If I'm doing nothing now, how about I commit 3 days a week, 15 minutes a day? What if I did that? We call it chair time around here. What if after this service, I actually went out and signed up for a life group and I got to be a part of it, and people who heard this message took this to their chair time and they talked about it, let God speak to them. And then we went to our life groups and we talked about it even more there. And I got to hear encouraging stories about how God's working in them. Man, there's some good stuff, but it takes a risk. It's going to be a risk of my time. Will I give God that time? Well, I can't make that choice for you, but you can. And here's my prayer. It's been my prayer throughout this, leading up to this series, is that we would come to the place that if we aren't already, that we would declare in a moment of eruption and clarity, I get it. God's work is going on all over the place, and I'm like a sharp arrow in his quiver. And he has sent me so that I will land the mark.